Hi, I'm Cindy Cash, Principal of Ray White North Richmond, and I'm here again today with Troy Myers from the Urban City Group. Welcome, Troy.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about today pool compliance, which is an interesting topic. Most people don't worry about it until they go to sell their property, but they also do need to think about if they're going to lease a property.
Correct.
So pool compliance is important for either selling or leasing. What are the different time frames around, how long it lasts for, and if it's a new build, all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of how long compliance certificates last for, your normal compliance certificate, once it's issued, lasts for 3 years. If you're doing a new build, then the occupation certificate takes the place of the compliance certificate for 3 years, and after the 3 years, obviously, then you need to go back and get another compliance certificate or a certificate of non-compliance.
Yeah, so the main things that make a pool non-compliant, well, really it's the fence, isn't it? It's providing a parameter that's...
Yeah, that's right. So when we're going back out there, we're making sure that there is a fence. So internal fences and boundary fences both comply. That gates, as they're swinging away and they self-close, self-lock, that you've got your resuscitation chart in there, in the pool area. And then that your gardening is not causing a problem.
The vegetation's the big one, isn't it? Because people love to have a garden around it to make it look pretty and more resort-like, but that actually can make the pool non-compliant, can't it?
Yeah, we've seen a bit of that over the years. I think I had one guy had to go and inspect his pool fence, and the pool was probably 30 years old, and the little gum tree that was planted there 30 years ago was fine when it was planted.
30 metres high.
Yeah, so then you have to get the tree lopper. It probably costs more than the pool to pull down. But landscaping's a real issue. Boundary fences are a bit of an issue. Everyone sort of says, why do I have to worry about my boundary fence? The kids can climb over, but there's rules about how that works. So I won't bore you with the details because there's a lot of little details.
We're all bound with rules and regulations.
Too many, but we need them.
Yeah. So basically, to get your property on the market, if you have a pool or a spa, you need to have some sort of a certificate, whether it be a non-compliant or a compliant certificate.
Correct.
If for some reason your pool's non-compliant, what's the process then?
So usually what we do, we'll inspect. If the pool's non-compliant, we give the client the opportunity to fix it and go back. We might give them, between 14 and 30 days to fix it, and we'll come back. If they just are in a hurry and they need to get the contract sorted and they want a certificate of non-compliance, then we can issue a certificate of non-compliance. But concurrently, we have to then prepare a notice of non-compliance and send that to council, and then council can become involved. So anyone buying it, if they buy it, then they buy it with the notice, and then they'll be responsible to repair the fence.
Yeah, which could I suppose come back sometimes a little bit, because sellers are probably wanting to get the best price for their properties.
Yes.
Selling a non-compliant pool with some relatively simple modifications, or cutting back of some vegetation might not look as pretty, but then obviously it makes it a lot easier for a buyer. Then they don't have to think about all the implications and the costs and all of that sort of thing.
My advice is always
Make it compliant,
because you do open yourself up if it's not, and you're trying to make it as easy as possible for the next person, and if it's all too hard versus someone who's got something else that's easier, I guess they're going to go for the easier property that they don't have to worry about anything. So and we always stress that to people. We talked earlier on about unauthorised works and all those sorts of things, and people thinking that's the easier pathway because it's cheaper, but the value these days is in the approval itself. I know they only look like little bits of paper, but they're valuable, because for someone to go and get that approval, it's time and it's money. Yeah. That's where the value is, and none of us have got time these days. So.
No, well, and also with all rules and regulations, they change. They're constantly saying, the gap needs to be smaller, or something like that changes in the rules and regulations. So you might have built your pool 10 years ago. Even I've been to many acreage properties, they don't even have a fence because you didn't need to have one. But just because you didn't then or whatever, it doesn't mean that you don't now.
Correct, yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
But look, the rules are constantly changing. Yeah, waterfront properties and rural properties, they had exemptions. You either had to isolate the house from the pool or the pool from the house. But there's some instances where we do go out, they don't have a fence, and that's an automatic certificate of non-compliance, and then you've got to put the fence in. So, look, I think we spend, just as an aside, I think we spend, much of our year learning about the changes that come
Constantly
constantly
coming
come up in regulations. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the couple that I had that were acreage properties that didn't have a pool fence, we weren't even allowed to show the property or have an open home or do anything at all without them having at least a temporary barrier up. So if they weren't prepared to put a fence up, we weren't allowed to take anyone onto the property unless there was a barrier there.
Yeah.
To keep it safe.
Look, there are certain circumstances, but it gets a bit complicated. And if anyone wanted to talk about that, they could contact us. But yeah, generally what happens is you'll have to put up a new fence.
Yeah. What about spas? Is it just a matter of the lid, or do they need to have a fence? Because a lot of people ask that question too. What do you do with a spa?
You can do both, but generally the lockable tops will comply. So if you've got a lockable top, the Swimming Pools Act allows you to do that. If you don't want to go lockable top, then you treat it like a normal pool, and you have to have a fence.
Yeah. Well, I think most people obviously want to keep their children safe, and like, as you said, you can't really legislate against keeping an eye on your children.
Yeah.
But it is obviously something that does come up when you go to sell a property. You can't avoid it. You can't sell a property without this certificate in the contract. So eventually you do come to a point where you just have to deal with it.
It's unavoidable, I think. Look, we all want to look after our kids. And pool fences play an important part in that, and lockable tops. I mean, the big question we always get is, why don't I need a fence on
the dam?
Yeah, because the law doesn't apply to that yet. So don't say it, because they might end up happening if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Pretty soon we'll have to put floaties on the cows. Yeah.
All right. Well, great conversation. Always good to talk to you, Troy.
Likewise.
And thank you so much for another great podcast. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.